welcome to Talking Smarks here on AIM Student Radio, the way radio should be. I'm Josh, and I'll go ahead and get it started off right here. AEW Dynamite last night was tremendous. It emanated from Rochester, New York, a famous venue in AEW history. Keep in mind, this was supposed to be back in 2020, where the late, great Brody Lee was scheduled to make his AEW debut. Sadly, because of the pandemic, unfortunately, that particular arena was not used for the debut of Brody Lee. It ended up having to happen at Daly's Place during the first episode of AEW Dynamite during the COVID era. Emanated from an empty Daly's Place, and still to this day, I do wonder what that pop would have been. It's his hometown. However, AEW made sure to acknowledge Brody Lee's presence and still the impact that he had on AEW throughout the show. The show actually did kick off with a TNT title street fight. Also keep in mind, Brody Lee had one of the greatest, if not the greatest, title reign in the history of the TNT Championship. That's his belt. His son, -1, has the belt that was held by his father, the physical belt. Every belt that has come since has been a slightly different design. Obviously, like I said before, the original one is held by -1, and he will keep it the rest of his life. I hope he does. That belt, there's so much sentimental value to that original belt. Anywho's, let's go ahead and kick it off. We had Wardlow versus Scorpio Sky in a TNT title street fight after weeks and weeks of buildup. Obviously, Scorpio Sky was injured, which led to this match getting pushed back to last night. Great match. Wardlow doing this insane swanton bomb. Now, keep in mind, Wardlow is a very big man, and he flew through the air like he was like someone Dante Martin size. Short, sweet, to the point, Wardlow hitting the powerbomb symphony on Scorpio Sky to win, and your new TNT champion, Wardlow. They gave him the grandiose celebration. They had the confetti going off all through the arena. You'd have thunk he just won the world title. This was absolutely great. This has been a long time coming for Wardlow. We're seeing, looks like the culmination of the storyline that he had building up actually kind of over the course of several years, with Wardlow teasing splitting from MJF. Keep in mind, when Wardlow debuted in AEW, he was MJF's bodyguard, his muscle, and he was a heel there to do all of MJF's bidding. Before Revolution 2020, where during the dog collar match with CM Punk, Wardlow finally rebelled, gave CM Punk the Dynamite diamond ring held by MJF so that way he could clunk him in the head and get the win. Then this was followed by the, now looking at it, given the events of what happened with MJF over Double or Nothing weekend, kind of the squash match that they had at Double or Nothing, where MJF finally just beat the living daylights. Or no, my apologies, Wardlow beat the ever-living daylights out of MJF, which then led to the next night on, or the next week on Dynamite, MJF coming out, now dropping his own very infamous version of the pipe bomb promo, ending with the emphatic, "Tony, I want you to listen to me. I want you to fire me. You expletive mark." And we haven't seen MJF on AEW television since then. Who knows when he'll come back? I have a feeling with CM Punk out, although he is still technically the AEW World Champion, I have a feeling come All Out or whenever Punk is healed up, MJF's going to come back. Because that feud is not over. And it could be great. We'll see what happens. Obviously with MJF, there's still the whole contract situation of will he stay, will he go? No one knows for sure. We also did get a promo / ringside action bit with the Dark Order. There are less members of the Dark Order recently. Alan Angels has left AEW, as has Stu Grayson. So we have less members. However, the Dark Order did come out to assure the audience that they are there to stay, which is great because I don't want to see the Dark Order dissipate. There was so much work that was brought in. They've been there pretty much since day one of AEW, and I've gone through quite a few character changes before Brody Lee's arrival and obviously after his passing. So I really don't want them to disband. I don't want them to get rid of the members because there's just so much history there that's intertwined with Brody Lee as well. -1 came out, was about to make a little bit of an announcement, and then QT Marshall comes out, tries to ridicule -1, gets to promptly get his rear end kicked by all the members of the Dark Order that are left, and Brody Lee hilariously saying, QT, I could pin you right now, but I'm going to wait until I turn 18. I love -1. That kid is going to be incredible once he hits the age and he can officially hit the ring. I can't wait. We also had quite a bit of buildup for Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, because remember, Tony Khan also bought Ring of Honor. He's the owner. He's the boss. He has a whole other promotion to run. And we are getting some great matches that are scheduled. We're going to get Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia for the ROH Pure title. That's going to be a great match. A bit of a character change once again for Daniel Garcia, because he was originally the Red Death, the wrestling prodigy, then the sports entertainer when he became part of the Jericho Appreciation Society. And remember, their whole thing is they beat up pro wrestlers. But now it looks like, at least in ROH, we're getting more of the Red Death Daniel Garcia. This is going to be a great match with him and Wheeler Yuta. I can't wait to see it. We're also going to get, finally, instead of doing it on Dynamite, they're doing it on Death Before Dishonor, which is great. It is an ROH title after all. We are finally getting Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal for the ROH Television Championship. This is going to be also a great match. It's classic Ring of Honor all over again. And also the rematch that I didn't think we would see so soon, but if anything, I'm happy that Tony Khan, Ring of Honor, is cashing in right now on just the wave of popularity that FTR has right now. 7-star FTR, let me remind you, they are currently holding the AAA Tag Team Championships, the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships, and the IWGP Tag Team Championships. And we're getting the rematch at Death Before Dishonor, FTR versus the Briscoes, Part 2. This is going to be incredible. I can't wait. Death Before Dishonor coming up here in a few weeks. I'm going to have to look at about ordering it because, I'll be honest, AEW, or I should say Tony Khan, because he owns AEW and Ring of Honor, they kind of got some extra money off of me recently. Obviously, we had Forbidden Door a couple weeks ago, and now we have Death Before Dishonor. So it's like, okay, well, there's more money going my way, but if I'm happy with the pro wrestling product that I'm getting, I'll pay the money. And that's just always been my philosophy. Like, I'm happy that my hard-earned dollars are going to this company because they are providing me with this great entertainment that I just absolutely love. Not just the pay-per-views that I buy. I'll also buy the merch. I buy, obviously, a lot of AEW t-shirts. My favorite one is still, and it took me almost 4 days to finally get into Pro Wrestling Tees after it was released to get it. When CM Punk made his AEW debut, they released their variation of the famous Best in the World t-shirt that was absolutely huge in popularity during Punk's title run in 2011 when he dropped the original pipe, or not the original, but I should say his pipe bomb promo that absolutely set the wrestling world on fire. AEW released their variation of it. The website crashed. I was literally on Pro Wrestling Tees as the First Dance episode of AEW Rampage was airing. I couldn't get into it for 3 days to order the shirt. I was literally eating dinner with my parents. I'm pretty sure we were having Panda Express when I finally got in. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you on your phone during dinner, Josh? First of all, we were done eating dinner. We were just chilling there, letting the food go down. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to check. I'm going to see if I can get in here now. And I finally got in, and I ordered the shirts, and because there was such a backlog, I had to wait almost 3 weeks before the shirt finally arrived at my house. It was worth it. I don't wear it very often because it's just such a special shirt to me, but it's great. I also have, when I saw AEW Dynamite live in Denver at the First Bank Center, and keep in mind, this was 2 weeks before the pandemic era began, so it was the only time that Jon Moxley actually came out as AEW champion, world champion, to a full crowd, because he was written off TV for the next week's episode of Dynamite because the episode that we got to watch that was taped in front of our own very eyes ended with, back then, the Inner Circle powerbombing Jon Moxley off of the stage through a table, mimicking the famous Shield spot. Obviously, when Jon Moxley was Dean Ambrose in WWE, he was part of the Shield, and the triple powerbomb was one of their signature moves. So the next week, he wasn't on TV. This is when they were in Salt Lake City. And then the next week, the pandemic era began with the now iconic empty Daily's Place show, which was stacked because we had not just the debut of Brody Lee, we also had the debut of Matt Hardy, all in the same episode. And then we got a couple of weeks of pre-taped shows, which were all done from the Nightmare Factory, which was owned by Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall. I don't know if Cody still has any sort of ownership stake in it now, especially since he is with WWE. But it was a crazy era in AEW. Like, those first few weeks of lockdown where absolutely nobody was moving, nobody was going anywhere. It was, thinking about it now, it was kind of eerie because we were watching these shows and it was just like, okay, we know they tape these weeks in advance. Like, is this going to be how we're going to be watching it for the foreseeable future? And then we got the entire Daily's Place era, which helped a little bit. It didn't feel as awkward with the crowd because they had a lot of the AEW talent that wasn't actively wrestling in the ring around the ringside area, just providing crowd noise and being somewhat of a crowd. You had some hilarious dynamics in there. You had MJF and Shawn Spears having their own little banter back and forth. Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford also having their own little banter, promoting their Twitch channels. It was a fun time. Big Swole, when she was with the company, also had her fun little moments in the crowd. It was quite a time in AEW history, and you have to keep in mind that almost a third or almost 2/3 of their entire existence, because they spent the vast majority of 2020 and over half of 2021 inside of Daily's Place. So the vast majority of the storylines of AEW's history, of their television product, was produced inside of Daily's Place. I am glad that, thankfully, the pandemic has subsided enough that we can get these live shows in arenas, packed crowds. Obviously, the crowd in Rochester was very hot last night. I absolutely loved the daylights out of that crowd. They did Brody Lee proud. They did AEW proud. That was just a great show. Anytime you have a show with a very hot crowd, it just elevates the factor of that show because you just hear everything. Also, to mention on last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, the main event was absolutely bonkers. We had Brody King honoring the House of Black, taking on Jon Moxley for the interim AEW World Championship in just an absolute brawl of a matchup. Brody King is just like Wardlow, a very big but very athletic man for his size. Both men absolutely beating the snot out of one another. Moxley retained, so for the foreseeable future, he's still holding on to the belt. We also had the incredible match between Penta Oscuro and Rush. This was absolutely bonkers. These two have had a rivalry that has stretched beyond the years, multiple promotions. They beat the snot out of one another. This was pure lucha libre at its finest on national television here in the US. I absolutely loved it. And then we also got another Haas fight coming up next week. We are getting Claudio Castagnoli versus Jake Hager. These two are going to beat the daylights out of one another. Both are very technically gifted. Both are very, very big men. We're going to get big hosses to meet slapping together, and it's going to be glorious. And that's it for today's show. I'm trying to do slightly different formats. While, yes, the recaps that I was doing of Dynamite and Rampage are great, it is tricky to try to recap every single little thing that happens on that show in a more condensed format. So I'm just doing nowadays like my takes, the highlights for me personally of each episode, and we'll see where it goes. If it works, great. If not, let me know and I'll switch it up again. That's why we're here, to work out all the bugs, figure out what works, and what doesn't. And that was it for today's show. Just feel free to follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Talking Smarks, all lowercase. I live tweet during AEW Dynamite, AEW Rampage, the AEW pay-per-views. I'm not sure just yet if I will live tweet during Death Before Dishonor. We'll see. I will let you folks know. We post daily. We post memes also daily. And I do thank you all for listening, and you all have a great rest of your day.